Inside the Deck is brought to you by CoolStuffInc.com, sellers of Magic the Gathering and many other card and board games. GatheringMagic.com, your #1 resource on Magic the Gathering, strategy, and culture.
I think that with the draft format, you will more often run into decks that are highly synergistic, and in this format, that means decks using like Thatcher's Revolt and different human synergies. In the sealed format, it plays similar to a lot of other sealed formats. You have your bombs, and you want to have answers to bombs. But in the draft format, it's pretty fast. You need to be able to answer what they're doing very quickly, which means you need to really focus on your mana curve. In sealed, you have a little more time to kind of develop your plan.
Just like any sealed and draft format, the format's always slower in sealed. And like in sealed, you just have to have just a bunch of big, powerful fatties and bombs and stuff like that. But in draft, you can draft like synergy decks.
There should be 14 cards in front of you. You have 40 seconds.
I find a lot of people don't really respect how good blue and green are, and they'll just go into other colors, and you just have a lot of underpowered decks when you venture outside of that.
The other colors are just not very good. Like black is just weak, white isn't impressive. The colors are just really unbalanced. So if I can draft the 2 best colors, then that's where I want to be.
If you look at like a lot of the best decks, they have Abundant Growth or Borderland Ranger, because those are 2 cards that allow you to gain consistency, kind of develop your plan without giving up any card economy. So if I have an Abundant Growth and a Borderland Ranger in my opening hand, I'm almost guaranteeing myself no mana problems for the rest of the game, but I'm not down any cards to do that. When you combine that with the fact that Trusted Force Mages is a very, very good common, it has a lot of the really good 2-drops in Timberland Guide and the Wolf, and then some of the ridiculous uncommons, like of course Druid's Familiar. All of that combined with the fact that it tends to pair itself well with all the different colors. Whereas, for example, white, I really want to be white-red. Now I'll be white-blue, but I really, really want to be white-red in order to maximize the effectiveness of white cards. Whereas green, kind of go with anything.
What I like to do is I like the Thatcher's Revolt decks. I like the Gold Knight Commander guy and Thatcher's Revolt and the Riot Ringleader's Thatcher's Revolt. I love those decks, but those decks aren't exactly the best. I mean, they're very good, but there are other better archetypes in the format. But I like drafting those decks because it's awesome. Because out of nowhere, they're at 25, and then you just go Thatcher's Revolt, kill you, and then they're just like, ah! It's awesome.
I feel like the most underrated card is Nephalia Smuggler. I mean, you can blink your guys, you can save your guys, you can have combos with Vanguard, Miss Raven, Timberland Guide, stuff like that.
Even if you don't have a lot of inherent synergies with the card, just the fact that you can block and then blink your own creature to prevent combat damage, or make a Defang or a Spectral Prison fall off, to me it's a good card. And the last one would be Scroll of Avacyn, which doesn't seem that exciting. I really don't like playing 18 land in this format because there's not that many mana sinks, and yet 17 a lot of the time you feel like sometimes it's hard to hit those 4th land drops when you need it. If you have a turn 1 Scroll of Avacyn, at worst it's going to cycle, and if you draw it late in the game, a lot of white decks, it's going to gain you 5 life and cycle for 2 mana. It's not a card again that I take highly, but if I have 2 or 3 Angels, it's almost always going to make my white decks.
I would probably say Ghostly Flicker. It just does so many things. Like it repairs soulbond creatures with different creatures. It triggers enter the battlefield abilities. It save your guys from removal. If you talk to any of the really good players, they all understand how important it is to prioritize the early drops in this format. You have not only a paucity of 1 and 2 drops, but also very low quality 1 and 2 drops in almost all of the colors. Cards like Butcher Ghoul, which initially were thought of as okay, and then okay, important. Now it's actually you really need to take Butcher Ghoul very high if you're a black player, and if you're not part of that information cascade that exists among kind of the high level players, then you might not prioritize those lower drops as high as you should.
Like in game, it's competitive. There's no takesy backsies. There's no nothing, right? It's pretty prison rules. As far as everything else, just the environment outside of the gameplay, it's awesome. Again, you just talk to friends, you just hang out. There's food, there's people, vendors, everything everywhere, and it's awesome.